Justine Waters picked up her phone as it buzzed, indicating a new message. It was from her husband, Tom, who had been away on business for several days. After unlocking her phone, she read his message, "Finished here. On my way back. Dinner reservations set for 7 p.m. at Mario's. See you there. Happy anniversary." The message lacked any affectionate closings or emojis, which didn't surprise her given Tom's recent lack of communication. She replied, "See you. Happy anniversary. Love you." Setting her phone on the nightstand, she hoped for a response but wasn't expecting one. With enough time before their dinner, she prepared to freshen up in the bathroom. "Who was that?" Jake Carter, the man she had just spent time with, inquired. "Just my husband," Justine replied. "Letting me know he's on his way back. He's made reservations for us at Mario's tonight. It's our 5th anniversary." "Your 5th anniversary, huh?" Jake mused. "I thought he was still out east." "He was," Justine confirmed. "But it seems he wrapped things up sooner than expected. I'll need to call my mother to watch little Jacob a bit longer." "All right, do that, then come back to bed," Jake suggested playfully. "Maybe we can give Tom a little surprise." Justine chuckled. "I'd love to, Jake, but I need to freshen up quickly. Fortunately, I have some clean clothes here to change into. I can't meet my husband in these wrinkled and stained clothes." "You think he suspects anything?" Jake asked curiously. "No, I don't think so," Justine replied. "He's been preoccupied lately. Hardly talks to me and rarely spends time with the baby. Feels like he's in another world." "How long do you think you can keep this up?" Jake inquired further. "It's hard to say," Justine admitted. "He provides for us well, and I know he'd be a good father if he focused on it." "And little Jacob?" Jake probed. "Does he know he's not his?" Justine shook her head. "If he does, he hasn't mentioned it. I can't imagine he'd keep something like that to himself." "Well, I'm here for you," Jake reassured her. Justine smiled back at him mischievously. "Just keep that warm for me, okay?" she teased. "You got it, baby," Jake replied with a grin. Justine went to the closet, selecting a clean dress. She couldn't help but notice how much of her wardrobe was here, rather than in the closet she shared with her husband. Justine scrutinized the dress she had chosen, trying to recall if Tom had seen it before. It was a blue dress that fell just above her knees, with a neckline that showed a hint of cleavage. She was fairly certain he had seen it, but if not, she could always claim she had just bought it. After calling her mother, Justine headed into the bathroom for a hot shower. She hoped to cleanse herself entirely of Jake's presence before meeting Tom. From the beginning of their affair 16 months ago, she had vowed never to let Tom experience any hint of it. Despite Jake's recent insistence, especially since the birth of little Jacob over 3 months ago, she staunchly refused to let Tom perform oral sex on her, insisting it would be disrespectful to him. The affair and the unintended consequence of Jake fathering her child were already too much to bear. Once showered, Justine meticulously groomed herself, brushing her long dark hair until it was perfect. She dressed and applied makeup, satisfied that she looked and smelled presentable for Tom's scrutiny. She kissed Jake goodbye and left for the evening. Meanwhile, Tom sat in his Escalade outside Mario's, taking a drag from his cigarette. He had just received a report from one of his private investigators. Justine had recently left Jake Carter's upscale condo, wearing a distinct blue dress, the same one captured in the photo he now examined. It was clear she hadn't worn this dress earlier in the day when she visited Jake. Tom wasn't surprised. Justine had been partially correct about Tom's whereabouts. He had indeed been out east but returned a day earlier, urgently summoned to address a significant security breach. The gravity of the situation was impressed upon him by Alpha One, a shadowy figure whose authority and connections were beyond question. Tom knew better than to defy Alpha One's directives, aware of the dire consequences that could follow. Justine believed Tom to be merely a traveling salesman pitching security solutions, but his role extended far beyond that. While he did sell and oversee installations, he also operated within a covert realm, dealing with sensitive issues that required discretion and, at times, ruthless resolve. The equipment he sold and installed included special circuitry that allowed Alpha 1 surveillance to monitor extensive details about their clients' operations, customer acquisitions, financial transactions, and more. Tom was acutely aware that the security breach Alpha 1 had flagged was none other than his wife of 5 years, Justine, coincidentally celebrating their anniversary today. For the past 18 months, she had been engaged in a passionate affair with Jake Carter, a senior partner at the law firm where she worked as a paralegal. Tom hadn't been fully informed until recently, mainly due to his extensive business travels. However, he had sensed something was amiss between them for some time. Justine's pregnancy announcement finally revealed the depth of her betrayal. Legal counsel confirmed that divorcing her while she was pregnant would be legally fraught, potentially leaving Tom financially liable for child support and alimony, despite their prenuptial agreement. At least the house was securely his from before their marriage. Suppressing his anger throughout her pregnancy was challenging, especially when she named the child Jacob, after her affair partner. Tom promptly requested a paternity test upon the baby's birth, confirming his suspicions that Jacob was not his biological son. Glancing at his watch, Tom anticipated Justine's imminent arrival at Mario's. Spotting a couple by the entrance, a man in a khaki jacket with a woman carrying a briefcase, he recognized his cue. Parking across the street, he gathered his briefcase and walked over, acknowledging them subtly before entering the restaurant. Tom spoke quietly to the hostess and was soon seated in a secluded booth. The couple he had noticed were seated nearby, within earshot. After ordering and as they perused the menu, music started playing from another part of Mario's, hinting at the dance floor and lounge it also offered. "That sounds like our song," Justine remarked, implying her desire to dance. Tom hesitated briefly but decided to oblige on this anniversary, perhaps their last. "Care to dance?" he offered, rising from the table. "I'd love to," Justine replied, taking his hand. They danced together, but Justine couldn't ignore the emotional distance Tom maintained, as if he could barely bear touching her. After the song ended, Tom escorted her back to their booth where their meals had arrived, and they began eating in silence. "Is something wrong, Tom?" Justine asked, her voice tinged with concern. "You seem distant, especially on our anniversary." "Yes, it is our anniversary," Tom replied tersely. "But your dress, it smells like it's been hanging in Jake Carter's closet for quite some time. And despite your efforts, you weren't entirely successful in removing his scent from your body." "What?" Justine exclaimed, feeling insulted by Tom's accusation. "Jake Carter? Are you serious?" She attempted to deflect Tom's accusations, her tone defensive. "Yes, Jake Carter," Tom stated matter-of-factly. "You know him well enough, being one of the senior partners at your law firm." "Justine, of course, I know who he is," Justine retorted sarcastically. "I certainly hope so," Tom continued, his voice unwavering. "Considering how much time you've spent in his bed and that he fathered little Jacob." "What are you insinuating?" "This is outrageous," Justine protested, her indignation growing. "Actually, you will sit here and listen," Tom asserted, opening his briefcase and placing documents in front of her. "These are DNA test results. Jacob is not my son. The other sheet proves Jake Carter is the biological father, the man you named Jacob after." "How did you get Jake's DNA?" Justine asked, her confusion evident. "That was quite easy," Tom replied coldly. "You've been bringing it home with you at least 3 nights a week. But that's not all." He pulled out a thick folder and dropped it on the table. "What's this now?" Justine demanded, her voice trembling. "Every email, text message, and DM exchanged between you and Jake over the past 16 months, Tom revealed. "There's no such thing as privacy online anymore." "Just admit it," Tom continued, his tone cutting through her denials. "You and Jake had more than just a one-time fling. It's all here." He pointed to a specific page in the folder. Turned to page 75 and read it aloud. "Justine, please," Tom insisted as tears welled in her eyes. "Read aloud the words you wrote to him." Just don't make me do this, Justine pleaded, her voice strained. Either you do it, or I will, Tom said firmly. And I won't be discreet about it. Tears streaming down her face, Justine turned to the marked page and began to read aloud the intimate words she had shared with Jake, her voice trembling with shame and regret. I love what you do to me, Jake. I haven't felt so wonderfully satisfied as I have these last 16 months. I can't wait until you knock me up with another one of your babies. I love your cock, even more than Tom's, and I look forward to the next time you can fill me up with your cum, Justine read aloud from the transcript, her voice filled with shame and disbelief. In all the years we were married, I don't recall you ever speaking to me like that, Tom remarked calmly, his tone laced with bitterness. Is this everything? Justine asked nervously, hoping against hope that there wasn't more. No, Tom replied bluntly. I have photos, audio recordings, and hours of video footage. You must really hate me, Justine murmured softly, pushing her food around her plate as guilt and regret weighed heavily on her. Yes, I do, Tom confirmed, his words hitting her like a physical blow. There was a time when I would have done anything for you. Now, I can barely stand to look at you. How long have you known? Justine inquired, her voice trembling. I had suspicions before you even told me about the pregnancy, Tom admitted. I started investigating and gathering evidence, enough to protect myself under the terms of our prenuptial agreement. By the time I consulted with a lawyer, you dropped the bombshell about being pregnant. The lawyer made it clear that no court would consider a divorce until after you gave birth, ensuring I'd be financially responsible. Now that Jacob is born, I have everything I need to proceed. I've filed for divorce on grounds of adultery, Tom continued, motioning discreetly towards the nearby table where a man and woman sat. They stood and approached their table. Ms. Justine Waters, the man asked formally. Yes, Justine replied quietly, tears streaming down her face as he placed a manila envelope in front of her. You have been served, the man stated matter-of-factly. Served? Justine repeated, her voice cracking with emotion. Yes, with divorce papers, Tom clarified, handing her a pen. Examine them. They reflect the terms of our prenup. Sign now, and I'll provide a bank draft for $2,145.63, the exact amount you brought into our marriage. Don't ask for more. I already know about your secret funds. You can keep those and your retirement savings. All your belongings are at your mother's, Tom continued, his tone firm. She knows everything and is disappointed. She's agreed to let you stay until you find your own place, for Jacob's sake, not yours. I don't want this divorce, Justine pleaded tearfully. I love you. Don't insult my intelligence, Justine, Tom said wearily. Listen. He took out his phone and played the recorded conversation with Jake from earlier that day. Justine's eyes widened in shock as she heard her own voice. How did you get that? She asked, stunned and desperate for an explanation. Well, I could tell you, but then I'd have to shoot you. As much as I disdain you right now, I don't think it's fair to take Jacob's mother away, Tom remarked, his smile devoid of warmth. To you, I was merely a provider and caretaker while your baby daddy reaped all the benefits. Just so you know, your free ride is over. No more handouts from me. And Jake? Justine asked, concern edging her voice. Worried about your baby daddy, are you? Luckily, our state allows for alienation of affection lawsuits. From me, that is. He's being served as we speak. It may or may not go anywhere, but it's the principle, isn't it? His troubles are just starting, Tom continued. Today, I spoke with Hamilton Parker, your managing partner. I presented my evidence and voiced my displeasure over one of his senior partners being involved with a subordinate. Specifically, a subordinate who happens to be married to me, for now. Mr. Parker was understandably concerned and apprehensive about the potential fallout of Mr. Carter's actions on the firm, not to mention the financial repercussions. He agreed it would be best for Mr. Carter to no longer be associated with the firm and assured me he would bring it before the board this evening. He also agreed that punishing you wouldn't be fair, especially as a new mother. After all, Mr. Carter held a position of authority over you. He didn't want the firm exposed to a sexual harassment lawsuit, given your employment history there. For now, he's decided to retain you. But trust me, Mr. Carter's problems are only just beginning, Tom warned. How much do you really know about your lover? His clients, his business dealings, what he does when he's not with you. Do you have any idea? I don't know, Justine admitted. He never talks about any of that with me. Probably for the best, Tom nodded. Let's just say Jake Carter has a rather interesting clientele. The kind that attracts the attention of certain federal agencies. Agencies that have ways of making people disappear without a trace. Do you understand what I'm telling you? You're frightening me, Tom, Justine whispered nervously. And you should be frightened, he asserted. Frightened enough to stay far away from Jake Carter. Because he's headed for a fall. And if you're anywhere near him when it happens, you'll go down with him. Just who are you, Tom? Justine asked, bewildered. He smiled faintly, nodding towards the paperwork in front of her. I'm sorry, Tom, she said softly, her voice wavering. Tom looked up from his plate, his expression unreadable. There's nothing more to say, Justine. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she pleaded. Well, it did, Tom replied tersely. He took a sip of water, avoiding her gaze. Just tell me one thing, she urged, her voice desperate. Do you still love me? Tom paused, setting down his glass. He sighed heavily before answering, his tone heavy with resignation. I don't know, Justine. Maybe I did once. But I don't recognize the person you've become. Just give me another chance, she implored, tears streaming down her face. Tom shook his head slowly. There are no more chances left to give. Just one more, she pleaded, her voice cracking. Tom finally looked directly at her, his eyes hard. No. This is the end. Justine swallowed hard, realizing the finality in his words. With a defeated nod, she gathered her things and walked away, her heart heavy with regret. Tom watched her leave without saying another word, his mind consumed with the shattered pieces of what once was their life together. Well, on that we can both agree, Tom said calmly. Good day now. Tell your mother I said hello. Oh, and happy anniversary. His slight smile belied the weight of the situation, but his demeanor remained composed despite the turmoil inside. Justine, overwhelmed by the surreal calmness with which her husband had effectively cast her aside, fled from the table, tears streaming down her face. Tom returned to his meal, aware of the disapproving glances from other patrons. He met their looks with a shrug and a polite smile, masking the emotional turmoil he felt inside. 5 years of marriage, now shattered. At least, he thought, the worst was finally over. Epilogue. Tom navigated the next few days with a heavy heart but managed to maintain his composure. Despite the pain of ending his marriage, he believed he had handled the situation as best as he could without escalating matters further. Then, one day, a loud banging on his front door shattered the calm. Tom, upstairs in his bedroom, peered out the window and spotted Jake Carter's sports car in the driveway. He had anticipated something like this and had made certain modifications to his home, as instructed by Alpha One. Descending the stairs, Tom opened the door to find an enraged Jake Carter barging in. You son of a bitch! You cost me my job, and Justine won't even talk to me. I'm going to kill you! Jake screamed, face red with anger, advancing menacingly towards Tom. Tom calmly stepped back, watching as 15 tiny red dots appeared on Jake's shirt. Intruder alert, announced a robotic voice from hidden speakers. Do not move. What the hell is this? Jake shouted, swiping at the dots as though they were insects. Suddenly, a rapid series of shots rang out, and Jake staggered back, darts protruding from his body. He attempted to reach for them, but before he could, his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed to the floor. I don't think you're going to be killing anyone today, Carter, Tom said evenly, retrieving his phone. He tapped a few icons, connecting to a secure line. Operator 715463, a voice responded promptly. Clean up on aisle 15, Tom instructed. Clean up on aisle 15. Copy that, the voice acknowledged. Tom pressed another icon, and the concealed systems that had tranquilized Jake retracted seamlessly into the ceiling, leaving no trace of their existence. Tom allowed himself a small smile, satisfied that his new security measures had worked flawlessly. Minutes later, an unmarked white van arrived, and technicians in protective suits efficiently removed Jake's unconscious body from the premises. One of them appropriated Jake's keys and departed in his sports car. Once the operation was complete, Tom closed the door and resumed his routine, resolved to put this unsettling chapter behind him. A few days later, Tom stood outside a local coffee shop, savoring the caramel mocha he had just purchased, when he was abruptly halted by a large man in a dark suit and sunglasses. "Alpha 1 wishes to speak with you, Mr. Waters," the man growled authoritatively. "Now." "All right," Tom replied, slightly taken aback by the man's commanding tone. He followed the imposing figure to a sleek black limousine parked nearby and entered through the opened rear door. "Waters, good to see you up and about," greeted Alpha 1 once the door was shut. "Yes, sir, I've been keeping busy," Tom responded, feeling a mix of apprehension and curiosity in Alpha 1's presence. Alpha 1 smiled warmly and rested a friendly hand on Tom's shoulder. "Please, Tom. When it's just us, call me Regis," the one-eyed man said cordially. "I wanted to update you on Mr. Carter. He's been quite cooperative." "Thank you, Regis. So, he's provided everything you needed?" Tom inquired. "Oh yes, he spilled everything immediately," Regis confirmed. "But currently, he's quite literally singing like a canary. The tranquilizer darts in your new security system, coupled with our interrogation serum, have rendered him somewhat incapable. Right now, he's perched on a swing in a metal cage, chirping away." "I see," Tom responded, trying to absorb the bizarre image. Regis then withdrew an envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to Tom. "We managed to settle with him out of court before his mental state deteriorated further," Regis explained. "He was so relieved to avoid a dire fate that he agreed to terms far more favorable to you." "Well, that's a relief," Tom acknowledged gratefully. "By the way, I must commend you on that security system of yours," Regis remarked. "Now that we've extracted what we needed from Carter, I'm glad you opted not to employ those .50 caliber chain guns I jokingly suggested." "Indeed," Tom chuckled nervously. "I just had the carpet cleaned." "Any news on Justine?" Tom inquired. "Yes, she's back at work, under tight supervision by Mr. Parker," Regis disclosed. "Did you ever reveal your true allegiance to her?" "No, Regis, I never did," Tom affirmed. "Good," Regis nodded knowingly. "I already knew that from our surveillance, but I appreciate hearing it from you." "Thank you," Tom acknowledged. "When my divorce is finalized, you mentioned something about introducing me to my new partner?" "Yes, indeed," Regis confirmed with a smile. "I believe it's time you met your new colleague at headquarters." "Partner?" Tom questioned, puzzled. "I've always worked alone." "There's always a first time," Regis replied enigmatically. "I look forward to your visit." "As do I, Regis," Tom replied politely as the limousine's door opened, signaling the end of their conversation. Stepping out, he watched as the large man maneuvered into the driver's seat. As the limousine merged into traffic, Tom pondered the unknown future Regis had alluded to. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.